Hello and welcome to DevTest Solutions. In this short video, I'm going to show you how to use Identity and Access Manager when you're using an external database to manage your users, as opposed to using LDAP. So first up, what exactly is Identity and Access Manager? So this is a new feature that was introduced in 10.4, and it manages authentication for all DevTest components, including Enterprise Dashboard and each registry in your environment. Because it's responsible for managing authentication, that means it also needs to be the first component that you start up. So you can't access Enterprise Dashboard or an individual registry unless IAM is up and running first. So let's go ahead and take a look at this feature. So to start IAM, I can either use the desktop icon or I can navigate to the DevTest installation directory, open the Identity and Access Manager folder and then the bin folder, and there I'll find the executable for IAM. If you're on a Windows machine, you can also launch it from the Start menu. And once IAM is up, I can then launch the UI. And again, I can use the desktop icon or the Windows Start menu. And I can also just open a browser and enter the URL directly. And the default URL is localhost 51111, though that might be different for you based on where it's installed. And once that's up and running, I'm ready to log in. So I'll enter my username and password and click Login. And then IAM opens up to the General tab. And it's worth noting here that this tab includes a link to the DocOps space, and that takes you directly to the product documentation that's related to Identity and Access Manager. Now in this video, we're using IAM with an external database rather than with LDAP. So when you installed IAM, you entered the connection information for that database. So if I click Users under the Manage menu, you can see all of the users that are currently showing up in IAM by clicking View All Users. And right now we're just seeing the default DevTest users. If you're upgrading DevTest, the users that are already in your database show up here after you start the registry for the first time. But until you start the registry, those users won't show up. It's also worth mentioning that if you have an LDAP configuration file in your install directory, the users in your database aren't automatically migrated to IAM. So if you're not using LDAP, make sure the authentication providers.xml file is either not present in your install directory or is preceded by an underscore. For this video, I'm connecting to a new database where I haven't defined users yet. So I'm going to start this process by manually adding a new user. And to do that, I just click Add User. And here you can enter the username and any other relevant information that you want to associate with this user. For this demo, I'm just going to stick with the username, so I can click Save, though it's probably worth noting that the username has to be all lowercase and cannot contain spaces. And you can see that my user was added, but that's really not much good without a password. So let me click the Credentials tab. And here I can enter the user's password, confirm the password, and then click Reset Password. And I'm prompted to confirm that I want to change this password, which I do, so I click Change Password. And then the last step is to give this user the appropriate permissions, which we do through user roles. And to do that, I go to the Role Mappings tab. And on the left, you can see all of the available roles. To assign a role to this user, just select the role. I'm going to make this user a runtime user. And click Add Selected. And you can see that this role is now assigned to this user. If I ever need to change roles, I can select an assigned role and click Remove Selected. And that's pretty much all there is to creating a user, though you might be wondering about those roles and how they get created and how permissions get assigned. And I will show you that in just a second, but before we do, since we're already on this page, let me quickly show you the Sessions tab. Now this tab shows you the active sessions for the selected user. And we just created this user, so there's no session information here yet. But I'll also point out that as an administrator, you have the ability to automatically log this user out of all sessions from this tab. But now let's go back to my original list of users. And you can see that my new user is now in the list. And if I ever need to edit a user, I can either click the user ID or click Edit in the Actions column. And all of the tabs that we just talked about are available for editing. And back on my list of users, I'll also point out a couple more things. You do have the ability to delete a user, And I can also use the Unlock Users button to unlock any users whose accounts have been temporarily locked, typically from too many unsuccessful login attempts. And there's also a search feature to help you find a specific user. So now let's talk about creating and managing the roles that you then assign to the users. If you click Roles under the Configure menu, the Roles page opens up and shows you a list of defined roles. Just like your list of users, you can edit or delete existing roles. To add a new role, I just click Add Role. And then I can enter a name and description for the role. Here I'm just going to enter a name and click Save. And you can see my new role listed here. Now you might have noticed that this created the role, but it didn't let me assign any permissions to it. And this is a very important point. Identity and Access Manager lets you control authentication for all of DevTest, but authorization is still handled through DevTest Portal. What that means is that you can add, edit, or delete roles in IAM, but the permissions for those roles are assigned through Portal. And this provides the flexibility of defining different permissions for a role in different registries. So let's open up the portal to see what this looks like. In DevTest Portal, I can select Settings, Access Control, Roles, and here you can see the new role that I just created is showing up. And if I select New Role, you can see that there are no assigned permissions for this role yet. On the left, you can see the available permissions. So I can define permissions for this role by selecting a permission on the left and moving it to the list of assigned permissions on the right. I can also get more granular by expanding a particular permission and assigning a subset of permissions. And once the permissions are set, I can click Save. Meanwhile, back in IAM, I should also mention that you can manage sessions and events. And there's more information about both of those features in the DocOps space. And remember that you can get there by going back to the General tab and clicking Product Documentation. So that's a brief introduction to Identity and Access Manager. I hope you found this video useful, and thank you for viewing it. For more detailed information about this product, click the information bubble in the top right corner to go to the CA Service Virtualization product page, and from there you can access product documentation, support, or communities, or see the available learning paths.